You're listening to Underground USA News.
Thursday, July 31st, 2025, a newly declassified appendix to Special Counsel John Durham's 2023 report, released by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, confirms that Hillary Clinton personally approved a 2016 campaign plan to falsely link Donald Trump to Russia, aiming to distract from her private email server scandal. The documents detail how Clinton's campaign coordinated with operatives, including those tied to George Soros' Open Society foundations, and expected FBI assistance to amplify the narrative. Despite intelligence suggesting the plan's political motives, the FBI under James Comey failed to investigate, raising concerns about the agency's impartiality and its handling of the Trump-Russia collusion probe. A congressional investigation has exposed Harvard University's deep connection with the Chinese Communist Party, highlighting a decade-long partnership where the Ivy League school has trained rising CCP elites through its collaboration with the Chinese Executive Leadership Academy Pudong, controlled by the CCP's powerful Central Organization Department. Led by Republican Representatives John Moolenaar, Tim Walberg, and Elise Stefanik, the probe raises serious concerns about foreign influence in American academia, especially as Harvard faces scrutiny for training members of the U.S.-sanctioned Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps, implicated in the CCP's Uyghur genocide. This revelation underscores the need for transparency and vigilance to safeguard U.S. national interests from adversarial influence within higher education. In a bold move to reshape the national climate assessment, President Trump's Department of Energy has dismissed 400 climate scientists, replacing them with a streamlined team of 5 independent experts, including respected figures like Judith Curry and John Christie, to deliver a more balanced and pragmatic report by 2027. This decision, aimed at prioritizing America's energy and economic needs alongside reasonable environmental concerns, has sparked intense debate, with critics decrying the loss of scientific input and supporters praising the shift away from alarmist narratives. The overhaul reflects a broader push to challenge entrenched climate policies and focus on practical solutions. Senate Republicans, frustrated by Democrats' persistent obstruction of President Donald Trump's nominees, are weighing significant changes to Senate rules to expedite the confirmation process. With over 160 nominations pending and Democrats showing no signs of relenting, GOP leaders, including Senate Majority Leader John Thune, are contemplating measures like shortening debate times or bundling nominees for faster votes. While the Senate has confirmed over 100 of Trump's picks, the ongoing delays have prompted discussions about canceling the August recess to address the backlog. Republicans argue that Democrats' tactics, described as Trump derangement syndrome on steroids, hinder the president's ability to staff his administration, though Democrats warn that rule changes could set a precedent they might exploit in the future. The Federal Reserve opted to maintain its key short-term interest rate at 4.25% to 4.5%, resisting President Trump's persistent calls for rate cuts to stimulate borrowing and economic growth. This decision, marking the 5th consecutive hold in 2025, reflects the Fed's cautious approach due to economic uncertainties tied to Trump's tariff policies and inflation concerns, despite a robust 3% GDP growth in Q2. Notably, the vote saw a rare double dissent from Fed Governors Michelle Bowman and Christopher Waller, who favored a rate reduction, marking the first such split in over 30 years. Fed Chair Jerome Powell emphasized the need for further data on tariff-driven inflation before considering cuts, maintaining the central bank's focus on stability over political pressure. In a promising sign for the U.S. economy, consumer spending rebounded robustly in June, fueling economic growth despite looming trade uncertainties. The Commerce Department reported a 0.3% increase in consumer spending from May, with inflation-adjusted spending up by 0.1%, reflecting resilient household demand that drives over 2/3 of economic activity. However, rising tariffs have begun to impact inflation, with the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index climbing 0.3% monthly, pushing the annual rate to 2.6%, the highest since February. Economists note that while consumers remain a pillar of strength, cautious optimism prevails as tariff-related price hikes and slower job and income growth could temper future spending. President Trump's aggressive tariff policies have delivered a historic $28 billion in revenue for July, pushing the fiscal year-to-date total to over $151 billion, according to Treasury data. This unprecedented haul, surpassing June's $27 billion record, underscores the effectiveness of Trump's trade agenda in generating substantial funds for the federal government without relying on congressional action. As the administration approaches an August 1 deadline for reciprocal tariffs, these revenues highlight a strategic shift toward economic self-reliance and stronger trade negotiations. With new deals secured with the EU and Japan, critics argue tariffs may raise consumer prices, but the administration emphasizes their role in funding government operations and reducing reliance on foreign imports, fostering a robust domestic economy. U.S. Senator Susan Collins, Vice Chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee, successfully secured $577,580,000 for 231 main projects in the fiscal year 2024 appropriations bills, signed into law in March 2024, to support infrastructure, education, and economic development across all 16 Maine counties. While Collins champions these targeted investments as vital for local communities, some Republican U.S. House members and watchdog groups criticize such earmarks as reckless spending, highlighting a broader GOP tension over fiscal responsibility versus local project funding. Collins' efforts reflect a commitment to Maine's needs, though the debate over earmarks underscores challenges in balancing federal budgets with regional priorities. The National Institutes of Health has reduced funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives by 80% in the first 6 months of the Trump administration, saving taxpayers $168.7 million, according to a study by Do No Harm. The number of DEI-focused projects plummeted from 321 in 2024 under the Biden administration to 93, with funding dropping from $210 million to $41.4 million. Dr. Kurt Meisley of Do No Harm hailed the move as a shift toward merit-based, high-impact research, prioritizing areas like cancer and infectious disease over identity-driven programs. While some DEI grants persist, the cuts signal a broader effort to refocus NIH resources on scientific excellence and public health priorities. In a horrifying incident in Danville, Virginia, City Councilman Lee Vogler was seriously injured after being doused with gasoline and set on fire by 29-year-old Shotzi Michael Buck Hayes, who was apprehended after a traffic stop. The attack, which took place at Vogler's workplace, Showcase magazine, stemmed from a personal dispute unrelated to his political role, according to police. Vogler, a dedicated public servant in his 4th term, was airlifted to a regional medical center, with his condition undisclosed. The incident has drawn condemnation from local and state leaders, including Governor Glenn Youngkin, who called for prayers for Vogler and an end to such senseless violence. This brutal act underscores the need for civility and respect in resolving personal conflicts, as no grievance justifies such extreme measures. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey has announced a significant victory for accountability in public office, securing a felony indictment against St. Louis County Executive Sam Page on charges of stealing by deceit and election law violations. The grand jury's decision stems from allegations that Page misused over $35,000 in county funds to produce and distribute political mailers opposing a ballot initiative during the April 2025 election cycle, violating Missouri election law. Bailey, appointed as special prosecutor due to a conflict of interest with the local prosecutor's office, emphasized that public officials must adhere to the law, stating, "The Missouri Constitution is clear. Public money must never be used for political campaigning." This indictment underscores the importance of upholding election integrity and ensuring taxpayer dollars are not abused for personal or political gain. In a decisive move, the House Oversight Committee, led by GOP Chairman James Comer, has denied Ghislaine Maxwell's request for immunity in exchange for her testimony regarding Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking crimes. Maxwell, currently serving a 20-year sentence for her role in Epstein's illicit activities, was subpoenaed to testify on August 11, 2025, at the Tallahassee prison where she is incarcerated. Her legal team argued that testifying without immunity posed legal and security risks, even threatening to invoke her Fifth Amendment rights if demands were unmet. The committee's firm stance underscores a commitment to pursuing truth without granting concessions, prioritizing justice for Epstein's victims over Maxwell's conditions. A CBS News investigation has uncovered inconsistencies in the Department of Justice's surveillance footage from Jeffrey Epstein's final night in jail, casting doubt on the official narrative surrounding his 2019 death. The footage, intended to confirm Epstein's suicide, fails to clearly show the entrance to his cell block, and initial reports of a missing minute have been contradicted by claims from government sources that the FBI and DOJ possess an unedited version with no gap. These revelations, coupled with the DOJ's reluctance to release the full, unedited video, fuel skepticism about the government's handling of the case and underscore the need for greater accountability to ensure public trust in high-profile investigations. Former Vice President Kamala Harris has announced she will not run for California governor in 2026, opting instead to support Democrat candidates nationwide. After months of speculation following her 2024 presidential election loss to Donald Trump, Harris stated she has decided against seeking elected office for now, emphasizing her commitment to public service through other avenues. This decision opens up the California gubernatorial race, which had been on hold as candidates awaited her choice, and keeps her options open for a potential 2028 presidential bid. Harris plans to engage with Americans across the country, though her specific plans remain unclear. In a significant retreat from the world's second-largest economy, Apple Inc. has announced the closure of its Parkland Mall store in Dalian City, China, on August 9, 2025, marking the first time the tech giant has shuttered a retail location in the country since opening its first store there in 2008. This move comes as Apple grapples with declining iPhone sales, driven by fierce competition from domestic brands like Huawei, Xiaomi, and Vivo, alongside weakening consumer sentiment and a contracting Chinese smartphone market. Research from IDC and Connolly's highlights Apple's slide to fifth place in market share, with production shifts to India and Vietnam, signaling a broader strategic pivot away from China. The closure underscores the challenges facing American companies in an increasingly competitive and economically strained Chinese market. The Trump administration, under the leadership of newly confirmed U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow, is set to restore a more challenging version of the U.S. citizenship test, citing concerns that the current test is too simplistic and fails to reflect the gravity of American naturalization. Edlow, confirmed by the Senate on July 15, 2025, aims to enhance the integrity of the immigration system by emphasizing stricter vetting and enforcement, aligning with President Trump's broader agenda to prioritize national security and public safety. This move signals a return to policies from Trump's first term, focusing on ensuring that the naturalization process upholds the values and responsibilities of U.S. citizenship. The OA-1K Skyraider II, a rugged, low-cost light attack and reconnaissance aircraft, is undergoing developmental testing at Eglin Air Force Base to bolster U.S. Air Force Special Operations Command capabilities. Designed by Air Tractor and L3 Harris Technologies, this modernized version of the AT-802 civilian aircraft is tailored for close air support, precision strikes, and armed intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance in austere environments. Its unique tailwheel design, unseen in air system Air Force aircraft for over 50 years, requires specialized pilot training and new evaluation methods to ensure its performance in challenging conditions. The Skyraider II's affordability and versatility make it a practical choice for supporting special operations forces in remote, high-risk areas, potentially reducing reliance on costlier platforms like tactical jets. Testing includes human factors, handling, and austere landing scenarios, with future phases focusing on sensor performance and weapons capabilities, signaling a return to reliable, no-nonsense air support for America's elite forces. President Trump has extended a 90-day pause on imposing 30% tariffs on Mexican imports, following a productive call with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, signaling a commitment to strengthening bilateral trade relations. This pragmatic move, announced on Truth Social, keeps existing sectoral tariffs on cars, steel, aluminum, and copper in place, while delaying a broader tariff hike set for August 1st, providing Mexico additional time to negotiate a deal that addresses U.S. concerns over trade imbalances and border security. The decision reflects Trump's strategy of using tariff leverage to secure favorable trade agreements, fostering economic stability while prioritizing American interests. In a significant development that underscores the growing international consensus against unchecked terrorism, several Arab nations, including Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the entire Arab League, alongside the European Union and 17 other countries, have for the first time collectively condemned Hamas's brutal October 7 massacre and urged the group to disarm and relinquish control over Gaza as part of the New York Declaration, adopted at a UN conference co-chaired by France and Saudi Arabia on July 28, 2025. The declaration outlines a phased plan to unify Gaza and the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority, dismantle the military capabilities of armed groups like Hamas to prevent future atrocities, and advance a two-state solution with a sovereign Palestinian state, including East Jerusalem as its capital, while also calling for an end to the ongoing war, the release of all hostages, prisoner exchanges, and the withdrawal of Israeli forces. Israel firmly rejected the proposal, vowing to continue its rightful efforts to eliminate the Hamas threat and ensure national security, while the United States wisely opted not to participate, deeming the conference ill-timed and unproductive amid persistent regional instability. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that Canada will recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September 2025, contingent on the Palestinian Authority committing to governance reforms and holding elections in 2026 without Hamas involvement. This decision, aligning Canada with France and the UK, has sparked criticism from Israel, which views it as rewarding Hamas, and from U.S. President Donald Trump, who warned that it could jeopardize ongoing U.S.-Canada trade negotiations, potentially leading to 35% tariffs on Canadian goods. Carney emphasized the move aims to preserve a two-state solution amid Gaza's humanitarian crisis, but critics argue it risks destabilizing peace efforts and rewarding terrorism. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has presented compelling evidence that Anthony Aguilar, a former contractor and retired U.S. Special Forces officer, fabricated claims of witnessing war crimes by Israeli forces and GHF personnel at aid distribution sites in Gaza. Aguilar, fired in June 2025 for poor performance and erratic behavior, allegedly backdated a memo to May 28, 2025, to falsely suggest GHF ignored his concerns, when metadata shows it was created on June 21, 2025, after his termination. GHF also released text messages showing Aguilar threatening to become the organization's worst enemy and seeking reinstatement, undermining his credibility. These revelations cast doubt on media reports that amplified Aguilar's accusations without thorough vetting, highlighting the need for scrutiny in conflict reporting. Russia intensified its military campaign against Ukraine with a devastating missile and drone attack on Kyiv, killing at least 6 people, including a child, and wounding 52, as reported by Ukrainian officials. The assault, which damaged residential buildings and infrastructure, follows Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb, a drone strike that humiliated Moscow by targeting Russian air bases. Concurrently, the suspicious shooting death of Vladimir Verteletsky, a senior Russian defense official, has raised questions about internal Kremlin instability, with no clear explanation from Russian authorities. These events underscore Russia's unrelenting aggression and the volatile dynamics of the ongoing conflict, as diplomatic efforts falter and President Putin vows retaliation. In a move to uphold the integrity of women's sports, World Athletics has announced that all female athletes must undergo a one-time gene test to confirm biological sex before competing in the World Championships in Tokyo. Starting September 13, 2025, the test, targeting the SRY gene on the Y chromosome, aims to ensure only biologically female athletes participate in women's events, following controversies like the one surrounding Algerian boxer Emaine Khelif's Olympic participation. World Athletics President Sebastian Coe emphasized that gender cannot trump biology, reinforcing the organization's commitment to fairness despite past legal challenges, such as those from athlete Caster Semenya. Athletes must complete testing by September 1st, with results processed within 2 weeks, a step seen as critical to maintaining trust and equity in elite competition.
You're listening to Underground USA News.